Hello, communication scholars. If you're watching this video, that means that you're in the process of preparing your special occasion speech, or in this class, we also call it your commemorative speech. I'm really excited about this opportunity for you and myself to learn and grow. This speech is an exercise in commemorating or paying tribute to an outstanding person of Latine descent. Let's get started. One of the first things that we need to do is to define a special occasion speech. So, what is a special occasion speech? Here are three things to keep in mind. First, the main purpose of a special occasion speech is to entertain the audience by captivating their attention or amusing them while delivering an important message. Second, a special occasion speech is really the most common type of speech you will be asked to deliver in your everyday life, and it really is a speech to entertain. And lastly, there are different types of special occasion speeches. There are ceremonial speeches, there are inspirational speaking opportunities, and also motivational speaking opportunities. A special occasion speech happens typically at a special occasion. So think about a graduation, an honors dinner, maybe a wedding, or even possibly at a eulogy, maybe even at a religious function or at some type of conference. These are all different types of special occasion speeches. So what are we going to do? So, what type of special occasion speech will we be delivering in this class? I'm glad you asked. For this speech, we are going to think a little bit about the audience. So let me set the context. For this speech, we are going to pretend that we are speaking to a different group of people, because it is my belief that any speech can be tailored to any audience. You just have to know your audience. So let me set the context for this specific speech and who you will be talking to. So, wherever I go, I am constantly bragging about the Puente program at Cosumnes River College. News of the academic acumen of my students has created a buzz in the local community. I have been asked by principals at local elementary schools if I would be willing to coordinate a speaker series where students from my Puente class give short speeches to local elementary school students as a way to motivate and inspire the next generation of scholars. The principals asked that the speeches focus on lesser-known Latine folks who have had positive impacts on their communities, their professions, and or the world in general. The speeches will be given in a multi-purpose room setting to grades 4 through 6, so that's 4th grade through 6th grade, in an assembly type of setting. So now that I've set the context, I want you to be thinking about what type of speech or who would you like to choose if you were really going to be going to an elementary school and giving this speech to the fictitious students. So once again, we are not going to an elementary school in the area. We are not going to be speaking to 4th through 6th graders in real life. But instead, we are going to pretend that this context is real and that you are pretending when you come to class to give your speech that you are speaking to a group of 4th through 6th graders at a local elementary school in an assembly type setting. So let's take this scenario a little farther and really dive into what is the commemorative speech. Using the context that I just mentioned in the slide previous, So let's go over some of the important details related to this speech. First, let's start with points. Make sure you go on Canvas to view. Wait! I almost forgot. It is really important that you. All right. Let's talk a little bit more about the finer details of this speech. I like starting off this section with this quote from Maya Angelou. She says, "Words mean more than what is set down on paper. It takes the human voice to infuse them with deeper meaning." So let's talk about how we can deliver a special occasion speech that really gives a deeper meaning to the words that we are going to use to create this speech. One of the most important things to learn is how to deliver a special occasion speech. They're a little bit different than an academic speech where maybe we have done the speech to inform, we will do a speech to persuade. But this one is a little bit more entertaining, of course, a little bit more loose, but there's 4 things that you really need to take in consideration. First, to be prepared. Second, be adaptive to the occasion. Third, be adaptive to the audience. And lastly, be mindful of time. So starting with the first one, being prepared. Please, please, please make sure to prepare for this speech. Just because this is a speech to entertain does not mean that you don't need to prepare. So in order to deliver an extemporaneous speech, you need to practice your speech out loud several times before you come to class and deliver your speech. Also, you need to share receipts. Remember, you need to build credibility always when you're talking in front of an audience. And lastly, you really need to know your topic. Kids can sniff out someone who is not being authentic or doesn't know their stuff. So make sure that you're prepared for this speech. The second piece of delivering a special occasion speech is really making sure that you are adaptive to the occasion. Not all content is appropriate for all occasions. Imagine if you've been asked to give a toast at your best friend's wedding, right? So you need to think about, what content should I include and what content should I not include? Maybe the content that you include at the wedding is different than the content that you include maybe at some type of shower or bachelor or bachelorette party, right? So you really need to make sure that thinking about the occasion and what kind of content that you want to include. Because for this speech, we are pretending that we're speaking to an assembly of 4th to 6th graders at a local elementary school. You have to be thinking, who's the audience? And also for the occasion of a quick assembly, you only have 3 to 4 minutes. What information do you really want to present in this type of setting? They're not in the classroom. You're not speaking to a small group. You're speaking to probably about 100 kids. So let's move on to the third point, being adaptive to the audience. Being adaptive to the audience and also being adaptive to the occasion are very similar. The more you know about your audience, the more likely you will succeed at your speech. So before you start developing your speech and thinking about what content, be thinking about what were you like when you were in the ages of 4th through 6th grade? Do you know any young people in that age demographic? Possibly could you watch some television or social media that would help you understand maybe the things that they're interested in or are learning about? Those type of things will help you as you start to develop your speech. Also, your audience are squirmy young folks. So think about how you're delivering your speech is really going to be based on how they are interacting with you. So you might need be a little bit more animated. You might need to project your voice just a little bit more. But it's extremely important that you think about who your audience is and tailor your speech to their needs. There isn't anything worse than giving a special occasion speech that is the same canned speech no matter who it is that you're talking in front of. Again, folks can sniff that out and really feel that it's inauthentic. And lastly, it's really important that you're mindful of time. So in this context, I give you the time frame, 3 to 4 minutes, but you might be entering a special occasion speech opportunity where you don't know the time frame. Maybe you haven't had a chance to ask. If you can ask, make sure you do that. But maybe you don't have a chance to ask. You really need to use some kind of sleuthing to figure it out. Different entertaining speeches have their own rules and conventions regarding time. For instance, if you're giving a toast at a wedding, pretend, then your speech should be fairly short, right? However, if you're giving a special occasion speech at a commencement or graduation, typically those speeches are from 10 to 20 minutes long. So you have to kind of gauge what type of special occasion you'll be speaking at to how long the speech should be if you haven't been given guidelines in advance. The other part of being mindful of time is that folks get antsy. It's really difficult to hold the attention of a group of people for a very long time. So, and especially if that group of people isn't expecting you to talk for a long time. So you really need to be mindful of how long you want to speak. Another strategy is at the end of your speech, making sure you give a lot of enthusiasm and engagement and vocal variation to keep your audience engaged for those last few minutes of your delivery. All right, now let's really get down to the delivery techniques of things. I really love this quote by Colin Powell, and this is what he says. There are no secrets to success. It is the result of preparation, hard work, and learning from failure. So let's talk about a few delivery techniques that will help you be successful in this commemorative speech. Let's talk a little bit about verbal delivery techniques. Here are 6 things to keep in mind. First, articulation. Please decide how you want your words to work for you. So how would you like to say your words? How would you like to use accents or local dialect or slang or code switch? Let's talk about nonverbal delivery techniques. There are 6 things I'd like for you to keep in mind. First, make sure you maintain good eye contact with your audience. My suggestion is to scan the audience. You want to look from the left to the right and in the middle periodically throughout your entire speech. Next, make sure that you incorporate gestures into your speech. So you might want to use the number 1, 2, or 3 fingers. You might want to open your arms wide when you're explaining something large, or maybe even use your arms to demonstrate gestures or symbols. Next, make sure you think about your facial expressions. My suggestion is to practice in front of the mirror. Show those teeth, show a frown. Make sure that your face is expressing exactly the emotions that you're looking for the audience to feel. Movement is important when giving speeches. You might want to intentionally plan a full body movement. But what I mean by that is maybe you want to start your speech standing in one location, and then at a certain part of your speech, move to the other side of the room, of the stage, or the classroom. This type of movement can also keep the audience on their toes and engaged with what you're saying. Knowing the room is also a really important nonverbal delivery technique. Make sure before you give any presentation in our class or in other spaces that you check the podium and decide where you'll place your note cards. Lastly, know the equipment. For this speech and in our class, you'll be pretty familiar with what's going to happen in the classroom. But in other speaking engagements, make sure you arrive early and test the audiovisual setup so you know exactly how to advance slides or how loud the microphone will be. There are some tips for note cards and speaking outlines I'd like for you to keep in mind as you prepare for your commemorative speech. First things first, make sure you number your note cards. If they should fall, if your note cards are numbered, it'll be easy for you to put them back in order. Next, write with a pen. Pencil can fade, and also use a highlighter to add color to your note cards and speaking outline. It's always easier to look down at bold colors while you're speaking. Next, use the outline structure that we're going to go over in class to also construct your note cards and speaking outline. You will get familiar with the structure of main points and subpoints, and these will help you construct your note cards. Only write on one side of your note card or piece of paper that you plan to use for your speaking opportunity. Writing on the back side of a note card confuses the speaker oftentimes because you can't remember while you're speaking if you need to flip the card or turn the card over or discard it. If you only work on one side, then you know that when a card is done, then you place it to the side and it can be discarded. Use keywords and phrases and only write quotes word for word. And I would also say statistics. What I mean by this is if you're trying to give an extemporaneous speech, you don't want to write out your entire speech in full sentences or in essay form because you might end up reading your speech instead of giving it in a more impromptu or in a more extemporaneous style. Logistically, make sure you hold note cards in one hand and place them on the podium. You do not want to hold note cards in both hands because it makes you seem a little bit more robotic. Next, switch note cards while looking at the audience. A great technique and pro tip I would add is if you look at the audience and then discard or change your note cards. This gives the illusion to the audience that you are confident and well practiced with your speech. And lastly, you should create note cards that are large enough for you to see without squinting. My suggestion is never to use anything smaller than a 3x5 card and nothing any larger than a regular paper sized 8.5 by 11. All right.